Call the meeting to order. The actual pledge of allegiance, like opening prayer by Pastor Macy. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us take a moment and bow our heads in prayer. Heavenly Father, what more can we say but thank you? Thank you for giving us a truly blessed weekend to have our festival, to bring our community and those neighboring communities around us together in fellowship and fun. And we would just truly say thank you for all the men and women that ensured that we had a safe time as we joined together, while others around ensured that we were safe in everything that we did. And we ask that your Holy Spirit be present on the hearts and the minds of those people present here tonight as we prepare to again make sure that our Blissfield is truly filled with blessings only you can bestow upon us, and all good works that this village does, we do it in your holy name, in your holy Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Roll call.
Brad Hilded,
Here.
Glenn Dusa. Here. James Dyson.
Present.
Mike Gunner.
Here.
Jerry Hayes.
Here.
Barb McHenry. Here. Lindsay Waters.
Present.
I'll make a motion to move to approve the minutes of June 27th, 2022 as presented.
Support. I would support it to approve the minutes of June 27th, 2022 as presented. Questions or corrections? Now you can call the roll.
Barb.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Gwen.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes. Minutes are approved. Presentations and communications. Kevin Martin is running for District 7, Monterey County Commissioner. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Kevin Martis, and I will be very brief because I know you have a lot to do, but I've entered the race for County Commissioner in District 7. Many local officials and citizens have asked me to jump into the race. I currently serve as the Deerfield Township Zoning Administrator. I also worked for 6.5 years as the Vice Chair of the Riga Township Planning Commission. I live in Riga. I also served on the Board of Directors of the Crisis Pregnancy Center in Adrian. I'm also pleased to report that I'm the first county commissioner candidate in Lenawee County to have been endorsed by the Police Officers Association of Michigan. I'm a proud supporter of law and order, and I'm very pleased with that endorsement. The theme of my campaign is working together, and it's not just a talking point. As you may have followed some of the emails my friend Josh Van Camp has sent out, particularly with respect to Project Phoenix, I believe our county is in crisis. We're suffering from a lack of transparency, particularly as it relates to Phoenix, and I'm going to share a new update on that yet tonight. Many townships and officials that I'm meeting with don't have great confidence that our county government is being a good steward with our money at this point. I want to work to change that. Four quick promises that I will share with you tonight. I will communicate regularly with all 9 units of government in the district. In fact, this afternoon, I sent an email to Danielle with an update about what's going on with the ARPA funding. And I encourage you to come Wednesday night and share your concerns about how the county intends to reallocate that money. I will offer District 7 roundtable meetings once a quarter so that every unit of government can send a person or two to attend, so we can all sit at the table and talk to each other about things going on in the district. I can talk to you about the county, and I can listen to you about your concerns. I will work to strengthen conflict of interest rules for the county commissioners, and I will continue to work to make sure that Project Phoenix stays on the shelf as a county project. Commissioner Gates and I have three main policy differences. Even though 6 of 9 of our municipalities have sent resolutions opposing Phoenix, and in truth, 2 of the other 9 are opposed as well, and just haven't put together a resolution, Commissioner Gates continues to support Project Phoenix. Secondly, about the COVID relief money, the county's getting $19.5 million total The road commission has asked for $1.9 million of that money to offset their losses from the diminished gas tax revenue that resulted from the pandemic and the lockdown. The commission is not inclined to give that money to the road commission, and our current commissioner has not fought for that money, but you need to know 1.3 million of that 1.9 is coming to our own district to rebuild Yankee Road. Because that money has not been released, that project will be 1 to 2 years longer in completion. And finally, though my opponent is campaigning on a theme of economic development, he joined 5 other commissioners to defund Lenawee Now for this next quarter in punishment for saying that they need to see better financials on Project Phoenix before they can support it. And to that end, Jim Van Doren, who heads Lenawee Now, has now entered the race as an opponent to Chris Wittenbach. One final point. If you've been following any of the communications and the stuff we've been talking about with Project Phoenix, you may know that myself and 2 other citizens in the county have actually filed complaints about our current board chairman and his private property purchases that he made concurrent with his development of Project Phoenix. We filed a complaint with the prosecutor. That complaint has advanced to the Attorney General and the Michigan State Police are doing an investigation into that. I won't belabor all the details on that, but we have dug deeper into some Freedom of Information Act documents we got from the city of Tecumseh. And although our current chairman claims that the properties he purchased are for his daughters, and in fact will be not really a benefit to him because Phoenix would drive up his property values, which would increase his property tax. That's what he said in the Herald. It turns out there's something much deeper. The county applied for almost $10 million worth of grants from the feds for Project Phoenix. And as you guys may know more about grants than me, I don't apply for them. If you can show collateral private investment will be attracted from this public investment, your proposal will move higher in the approval list. The county identified $21 million of additional private investments that would come into the city of Tecumseh in and around the Project Phoenix footprint. 19 million of $21 million of that investment, according to the documents I will give you when I'm finished, are on the part of firms owned by Chairman David Stimson. In that document, he signed multiple times that Phoenix will benefit his private personal developments. In my mind, that's precisely the kind of behavior that clean government would not allow. So what's my point? Myself, Jim Van Doren, and Gordon Gauss, who's running against Casey Bolt and Adrian, are all making a pledge to you that based on what we've seen in these documents, if we are elected, our first order of business will recommend that the county hire a special investigator to do a thorough investigation of exactly what's transpired with respect to Project Phoenix. And we will make sure the public can be reassured again that they have a clean county government that truly represents everybody's best interests. I believe our county is in crisis. It's time for change. And if elected, I will work with you to make our county function better for everybody. I would appreciate your support on August 2nd.
Thank you. Any questions? You good luck.
Thank you. Anybody mind if I step over to Ragged now?
Thank you, Doug, for making Danielle aware of the special meeting taking place on Wednesday.
You bet. Thanks, folks. I appreciate your service.
Second item under presentations and communications, public hearing, PDA development and TIF plan.
So this is Laura Haw with McKenna. I will mostly defer to her. However, before she gets started, I do want to just notate that myself, Lisa, nor Laura Nichols received any written comments on this. And I'll turn it over to Laura Haw. Too many Lauras.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees. So for the purpose of tonight, I'd like to give a presentation on the amended development and tax increment financing TIF plan. But also one of the purposes of tonight is to hold a public hearing and see if there's any additional comments, even though there weren't any written comments, if anyone is here this evening to speak on behalf of the plan. So if you would like to have a motion to open the hearing first. That would be appropriate at this time.
I'll make a motion to begin the hearing regarding the Blissfield Development Plan and TIF Plan draft.
Thank you.
Supported to open the Blissfield Development Plan and TIF Plan draft. Let's vote on that. Yep. Call the roll, please.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Public hearing is began.
Thank you. Would you prefer to take any other public comment before I give my presentation, or would you like me to start with that?
I could ask if there's any other public comments on the plan. If not, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this is a very important plan for Blissfield as it allows your DDA Main Street to continue to use the funds from the change, the increment in the property value, those increases over time towards economic development and to spur private investment. So this will allow your DDA to continue to attract private investment, to make improvements to infrastructure, the streetscape, parking, public spaces, gathering spaces, public art, and also to help put on the money events that you do throughout the year in the DDA district. So this is an amended development plan, which means that it is furthering the lifespan of your current DDA plan. So the current DDA plan was established in 1992 and had a 20-year window, which expires at the end of this year. So this is continuing the life of that for another 20 years, which is typical. This plan looks different than your current DDA plan, mostly because the state statute changed in 2018. So this is in compliance with that public act. And there are actually two different plans within the document before you. First, there's the development plan, and then that really details the projects that the DDA is going to look to complete over the next 20 years. And the tax increment financing, the TIF plan, deals more specifically with the financing mechanism on how those projects will be realized. So just going quickly through the plan, there's first an executive summary. This is not required by the state act, but it does provide some background to the document itself, the history of not only the village, but also the DDA and the start of that 1992 plan. Then on page 3 within the executive summary lays out the goals and objectives. There are 6 main goals. With supporting objectives, these have been carried over from your 1992 plan, but they have been updated with input from the DDA and the administration and then the public through the engagement sessions. And then the actual development plan starts on page 6. And you'll see that in the light blue headers, those are references to the state act, the titles that are used, and then underneath in the gray background with the dark blue text, that specifically references the section number of the act, just in case there needs to be cross-reference ever. So it shows which sections it's satisfying. So many of these are requirements. Some of the titles I know seem lengthy, but that is part of the state act. Page 12 really gets into the projects and the phasing. The projects are structured to build on one another. So in phase 1, there may be projects and discussion about doing design concepts and sort of that foundational work, and then the actual construction may happen in phase 2 or 3.
May I stop you right there, Laura,
Of
for
course.
just a brief moment? Yeah. When we had the initial development plan, was it also in phases then? Or is this something new for this next 20 years? I was just curious if you knew.
I think there were phases in the last one. It may have been like short-term and midterm.
Okay.
I don't remember if there were specific years that were associated. One thing to note though for these phases is that it is flexible. So if something doesn't happen in the next 5 years in phase one and ends up happening later in phase two, or it comes out of order, that's perfectly acceptable. It's still in your plan. This is just to give guidance and direction, as you move through the next 2 decades.
As you talk about that, one of the things that I noticed was that the wayfinding is at our phase 2 level versus our phase 1 level. I know that was something, Mark, that you guys have been working on, Mike, within the DDA kind of a thing. So I was just curious if that had any bearing, but it sounds like from what you're stating, it can be moved up instead of waiting for the phase 2 timeframe of 2027.
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Right,
yes.
thank you.
And one of the recommendations that we just give DDAs and municipalities is that this plan is really meant to be a tool. So every year we recommend that the DDA and the village council would have a joint meeting and go through these plans and see what types of funding sources you might have, both within the DDA's budget, but also grants or other funding sources that may change the ranking of these projects and what you're able to accomplish. So then on page 13, table 1, this lists out the different projects by phase, and there's also ongoing projects. So that, of course, would include like business retention, marketing, any technical assistance that you may need, basic infrastructure maintenance. Those are anticipated to run the life of the plan. And for each one of these rows, for each of these projects, there is a more detailed description of the project in the preceding pages for that project description. And the total cost over those 20 years is $6.7 million. And this is not to all be paid by the DDA. This is, of course, is anticipated for matching funds or other funding sources that would occur over the next 2 decades. And then on page 23 gets into the tax increment financing plan. So how these projects are really to be paid for. It's anticipated that 1.3 million will be captured over the life of the plan. That is an estimate. It's a more conservative estimate at 2% growth, but that's typically what we like to add in for DDA plans. And then the last section includes the appendix. So this has the description of the legal description of the boundary, all of the parcels within the boundary, and then the adoption documents that will be added in once this is finally approved by council. So tonight is the public hearing. If you are satisfied with the plan, the next step would be to close the public hearing, and then later on in the agenda, consider approval of a resolution to adopt the amended development and TIF plan by ordinance. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Motion to close.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing regarding the Blissfield development plan and TIF plan draft. Support.
Moved and supported to close the Blissfield development plan and TIF plan draft public hearing. Call the roll, Lisa.
Jerry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Public hearing's closed. Move on to the agenda. There's something going to be added, which is going to be number 1, which is police vehicle repair. And then the following numbers will just go back down. So I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the agenda as amended. Call the roll, Lisa.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Agenda is approved. Public comment items on the agenda. Name, address, please.
Emily Mullins, 401 Giles. I have a comment about the agenda item administrator review. And as a citizen, I'd just like to say that I found Danielle, in my interactions with Danielle, I have found her to be organized, responsive, helpful, easy to work with, and she always follows up with everything. And sometimes I felt like in the past, things were said, we never saw the fruition of it, but I just wanted to share my comments. And thank you, Danielle, for being here.
Any other comments, public comments? Now we move on to the unfinished business. Going on to new business. Item number 1, police vehicle repair.
Council, thank you for adding this item to the agenda, and I apologize for not having it to you ahead of time. We had one of our police vehicles, the 2017, go in for some repairs that was overheating. And Spirit Ford did get back to Chief. The total cost for those repairs is $6,168. This, of course, is something that we unfortunately were not anticipating. And it is over that $5,000 limit per our purchasing policy. It does require your approval. Chief did reach out to a couple other mechanics to see if we would be able to get it done cheaper. And my understanding, and I'll let Chief speak up if I'm wrong, is that they were not able to do the repair because it does require the engine coming out and some special tools to do it. So that's really the quote we're stuck with, I guess, unfortunately. But if you have questions for myself or Chief, please let us know.
What was the actual diagnosis? It's a water pump and a catalytic converter. Water pump is the really expensive item. That particular vehicle, we're told, requires special tools that the outside mechanics don't have. And I spoke to 2 mechanics, and one of those actually spoke to a 3rd mechanic. And none of the outside mechanics were particularly interested in taking on the project. They didn't have high confidence that they could do it correctly.
Way most of those engines are now, they're so packed in there, you have to pull the service.
What do we look into any alternatives as like replacing the car rather than spending $6,000 on it?
This is the vehicle, you guys, that's being replaced with the one you just approved 2 meetings ago, I think.
Okay.
The one most recently, this was gonna be the one.
When is that
went out of
scheduled to
service.
arrive?
We don't have a delivery date.
Yeah, and that's why we had ordered that one and brought it to you guys, because they're so far out. I mean, it's taking a long time, a lot longer than it used to, so.
Okay.
It could be not until next year,
At least next fiscal year.
yeah, I would definitely next fiscal year. I would be surprised if we had it by the end of this calendar year.
Do you have a build date on that new one yet or not?
We're waiting for delivery. We can't even get a build date because we don't know when it's going to be delivered.
Gotcha.
Right, then once we get it, it'll have to.
Probably a month after we get it.
No, I meant from the factory. Do you have,
Yeah, that dealership, that's signature Ford, and they don't have any dates.
okay.
I make a motion to authorize the repairs to the police vehicle for $6,168.
I'll support it. Move to support to approve the repairs on the police vehicle for $6,168. Any other questions? You can call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. The motion carried. Action item 2, payroll.
I move to approve the payroll register for June 2022 in the amount of $128,804.24.
Or moved and supported to approve the payroll register for June 2022 in the amount of $128,804.24.
Who seconded that?
And
It was Tim, thank you.
any questions? You can call the roll, Lisa.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carries. Action item 3, ordinance adopting approving DDA development and TIF plan.
To approve the ordinance approving and adopting the DDA Main Street Development TIF program plan as recommended by the DDA Main Street Board.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the ordinance of approving and adopting the DDA Main Street development and TIF plan as recommended by the DDA Main Street Board. Any questions? Or any more further comment? That, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Tim,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, that motion carried.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much, Laura.
Action item 4, bid awards, sidewalks.
Council, I did work with Brent to put out the sidewalk bid for this year. We only received one from Al Smith Construction. And I am requesting that we award the bid to him not to exceed 26,000, which is what we have budgeted within our current fiscal year budget for sidewalk repairs and replacement.
Make motion to award the 2022 sidewalk replacement bid to Al Smith Concrete not to exceed $26,000.
Support.
Moved and supported to approve the 2022 sidewalk replacement bid to Al Smith Concrete not to exceed $26,000.
So generally, we do this by quadrant. The village is going to complete this quadrant this year, or does it just get us partially through quadrants? Or have we expanded that, or is this the entire village?
I will not lie to you, I do not know about the quadrants. That's the first time hearing of that. Brent has a list that he did share with me, if you need me to run and grab it, but I believe we're touching a part of the village as a whole. Is my understanding. I would have to confirm that with Brent. I thought that's how we did it last year too, where we tried to touch a portion everywhere. But
And it doesn't include any future or additional infill.
No, this is just repairs, replacement, it's not, I'm lying to you. There's one new sidewalk piece being added underneath the planter over here by Southern Sass, right? So that right now that planter is just sitting in the dirt and grass and it's kind of tilted and leaning. So we are putting a piece of sidewalk under that, but outside of that, it's all repair and replacement.
And does that include where the trees have been yanked out, I guess, along 223, the decorative trees, where we did the TE grant. Obviously, we can't get those to grow, we're just gonna yank those steel grates and fill those, or we're just gonna leave those holes, or we try to replace the tree again.
I don't know. I'm working on a grant right now for some tree replacement, and I worked with Brent on that, to pick which trees we were doing. I know there's some sidewalk along 223 that was, because of some roots, I think, that'll be replaced. But I'm not sure about the grades. Again, I'd have to check with Brent, I'm sorry. I know this project doesn't include the removal of any trees. Are you saying the trees are still there, Mike?
No, we've tried to replace them, and it's probably 2 or 3 times, so I figured it'd probably just be easier if they're not gonna live, if they don't have that underground base that we talked about. in
Okay.
The potential main part of it, so
I don't
it's better
think
to
that
just yank
those
those
are
grates and fill
included.
it, otherwise you have a large hole.
Where are you talking about?
In front of Norton's, for example, there were 2 trees, a decorative trees that were pulled.
Yes, okay.
And again, you know, if it's not gonna live, let's just pull out those grates and fill it in the sidewalk and move on, because it's probably been 2 or 3 times that we tried to replace the trees, and they haven't survived.
Okay.
But rather than just leave a potential large hole, you know, where those trees were.
Yeah, let me talk to him about that. I don't think they are, but I don't quote me on that.
And no curb replacement this year.
You know.
Any other questions, comments? Now you can call the roll, Lisa.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, that motion carried. Next, item 5, approved barbecue at the barn.
I did put this item back on the agenda a few weeks ago in one of my weekly summaries. I had let council know that they had posted that they were doing it again. To let me know if you wanted it on the agenda, and I did hear back from a council member. I know that this is under the threshold technically, it's something that I could approve, however, I'm uncomfortable doing so because last year, we had purchased a table, and then directly following that, we had received a request. I think from Rotary, but I don't know, it's been a long time, so don't quote me on the Rotary part, but we received a request to sponsor or help fund a nonprofit. And at that time, we had reached out to legal, who said that our village funds can only be used on public funds, so we couldn't do certain things unless there was a public need. And when that, I reported back to council at that time, one of you had asked me about the barbecue at the barn, which we had already purchased, but just I think for future reference. And at that time, I had talked to the attorney, and he said that definitely, you know, it seemed to lean towards the side of not being an appropriate expenditure, but that he felt like the council could justify the public benefit of the expenditure and that it was kind of on the line. I did talk to legal again, and I do have Dave on standby if we need to dial him in too, but he had indicated this year that he really does not feel that that is an appropriate public expenditure. So again, I put it on the agenda for you guys. If you want me to get a hold of Dave, he can zoom in real quick and answer any questions that you guys have.
Just to reiterate, it is not an appropriate.
Yes.
That's
So I should also add that me reporting this is in no way me saying that we should not support this. The barbecue in the farm museum. If we want to do that as a village, I think that we could still move forward with maybe all coming together and purchasing a table, or if there are any of you that are interested, we can do that, but it would need to be with our personal private monies rather than village monies.
Yeah, I don't
I
wanna
should
go
have said
have,
that, sorry.
I don't wanna go have dinner on taxpayers' night. It's just not right.
the people in this town pay a lot of taxes. And for us to support that, for a few of us to go is just not right. If I want to go, I'll get my own ticket.
I think that's why the question was,
Yeah,
was raised last year as well,
Yeah,
for that same reason.
I think it's a good cause, obviously, and I would like to see more happen with that potential project and the improvements that it could bring for the village, but I guess, again, if we're depending on our auditors to catch this stuff, and it's been done in the past, is there an issue that hasn't been brought up by our auditing? Because, again, this is year 3, 4 of doing this. Why would the auditors not catch something like that if there was any concern across the board?
Yeah, and my guess is the auditors, because they pull basically a sampling of our expenditures. So I'm guessing they've not pulled this exact expenditure yet to realize, because it is a smaller amount, so it's not something that kind of cues them or trips them up to look into it a little bit more. They don't pull like every single transaction.
We pay our auditors a lot of money to take a short sample then, I mean, ungodly amounts that we pay the auditors to not
That's
catch it.
standard procedure. That's what auditors do, is the sampling.
And I could ask Mike, that's my assumption, is what I'm guessing has happened. If you want me to reach out to the auditors about that, I'd be more than happy to.
All right, then we'll go on to action item 6. Approve engineering services for US 223 water main loop project.
I am requesting the approval of this task order for our engineers to start designing and surveying the loop for the water tower. My understanding from Brent is that currently we have no ability when we're doing tower maintenance to isolate the tower completely, and what this project will do is kind of loop that around so that when we're doing maintenance, we're not turning off anybody's water service during that time. This is a fairly smaller project. It's not anything huge. Our intent, we do have to go underneath 223. So in talking with the engineers, it would be our intent to bore underneath there instead of tearing up 223, because obviously that would be very costly. But I do kind of want to talk about a little bit more. So this is a smaller engineering project, and I guess I just want to share with you guys kind of the thought. Brent and I sat down with the engineers, and actually Nora and Randy have been part of this conversation too, but specifically talking about public works, we have a lot of infrastructure that is outdated. Water and sewer lines, our streets that need some rebuilding, and we would really like to start making some progress. So what this kind of kicks off our overarching plan is that we would like to work with the engineers to design a project. And this project would be designed now and going into the winter so that we can bid it out and then next spring be ready to start construction and hit the ground running. And while we're constructing next year this project, at that same time, we would work with the engineers to have designed and ready our next project. So what we're essentially doing is putting that project in queue for the next year so that we're not having these gap years where we're not doing infrastructure projects. And if for some reason we don't, we're going through this process and we don't have the funding one year, we still have it designed and we own that design, so then we just move it to the following year. But again, we need to our goal is really to start, eat the elephant one bite at a time kind of concept and start making some progress on these infrastructure needs. But if you have questions, I will try to answer them.
I'm trying to remember if this was on the capital improvement plan. If it was, what priority was it? I don't remember it being on there. Is this something that's new?
With the new capital improvement plan, or are you talking about that asset?
Yeah, I guess, our previous capital improvement plan didn't have this in it, correct?
I don't believe that it did, no.
I don't think it has a little part of it, but
Yeah.
this part begins the rest of the capital improvement.
Right, so we specifically did, I do think it probably jumped up a little bit because when Brent and I sat down with the engineers, we specifically tried to pick a little bit of a smaller project to start with. Because we wanted to be able to get this designed, because we do kind of have, like really depending on the size of the project, design should start earlier in the year. So we wanted to do something we could get designed in time to bid out for next spring, and then, like I said, trying to start that cycle moving forward. And this is a fairly, it's water only, so some of our higher priorities are going to be water, sewer, storm sewer, and then street, obviously, because of the portion of area that we're gonna be tearing up to replace.
I guess, which my question is, could we continue to do studies and have, plans and whatever on the shelf? And again, if we're not following whatever capital improvement plan we've approved in the past, and these things just pop up out of the blue, how do we correlate, how do we stay in line with what we're trying to accomplish based on these previous studies? If this just popped up out of the blue, or is it something that is part of that long-term goal?
No, I think it's something that's been part of the long-term goal, but was it well communicated and documented previously? And that's like, I really, with the new capital improvement plan, that was part of the reasoning that we changed that, because we have these projects that popped up, like I can't even tell you how many times the employees were like, oh, well, we requested this project be funded 5 years ago. We didn't have the funding, so it was never funded, but then it's like it fell off the face of the earth. And I think that is something this project was talked about and then never really followed through with. So I agree with you. That's where we need to say, this is a priority, and then not lose sight of that. And hopefully with the new capital improvement plan, my intent is anything not funded, let's say it's in the request for this upcoming fiscal year, we just move that sheet into the next year. And maybe it gets pushed out further than that, or maybe another project jumps priority, but at least now we have that documentation so that we don't forget about it or lose sight, or we didn't fund it so that it just falls off the radar.
So I'm with Mike. How does this fit into the macro scale of our capital, like our water and capital improvement project long term? If this is part of it, great. But if this is a side project or a new project, I think we need to revisit what we've already discussed.
Okay.
So maybe it's just clarity. Maybe when you talk about water improvement, this is part and parcel, but I haven't seen this listed out either. So this sounds like a project worth doing, but I just want to know how this fits into the overall scheme of what we're going to be doing in the next 2 to 5 years to make sure we're getting all the projects done. We've got to replace a line going under the river. We've got lead replacement. How does this all fit into that macro overall, not just project by project?
So I honestly don't want to give you guys bad information, and I defer to Brent a lot when it comes to the infrastructure of the village, because he's been here for so long and he has so much history and institutional knowledge that if you guys are not comfortable approving this, that I would recommend we wait so that we can bring him in, because he's the expert, and I don't want to give you guys information that's not accurate.
Well, I would say as you go along being on the job and you learn more from Brent, maybe the starting point is to work with an engineers to get a better understanding of our system and what needs to be upgraded. Then we can pick up projects instead of trying to somehow.
And we do have that.
Weave them together.
We do have that. The problem is the size of them. So we don't have a lot of, let's go to this area and replace just the water line. We have a lot of, let's go to this area and replace water, sewer, add storm sewer. So they're much larger projects. And what I don't want to recommend to you, and that's where it complicates it, because I don't want to tell you guys, like, let's go do this sewer project in Park Street, and then we go do that. And then in 2 years, I say, let's go do this water project in Park Street, because I know if we can partner those, we're going to save money doing so, and it's going to be a lot cleaner of a project. If
So
we
this
do that.
project is already part of an overall overarching
Correct.
engineered.
This is part of, because Brent is the one that was like, hey, this would be the perfect project, and we talked about it. So this is part of the project, but it's, again, it kind of jumped to the forefront because it is the single water line, smaller project to get us started, to start tackling some of these more detailed projects that are gonna require more engineering, more surveying, and then just larger costs.
So it's a portion of a larger project.
This would complete that area for the water line, and then we would move to a different section of the village for, again, overall. I mean, we have a lot of infrastructure that needs attention.
So we can table this until we get more information.
It's up to you. If you guys would rather table it and bring it back, or if you feel comfortable, I'm good either way.
Can I ask another question? So this is just for the engineering, design and survey. Any idea what the total cost of
When
that
we-
project would be?
When they do the engineering, they will have an engineer's estimate for that, but no, at this time, we do not.
But you would anticipate we'd be able to afford this next year.
Yes.
I guess my only request would be, okay, include the CIP and say, okay, this is where it sits on this priority list on the CIP, and this is where it solves, and this is how we move forward. If we do this loop, then that moves us down to whatever in the next level or the next area. So I guess just include the information of, how we're prioritizing and why we're doing it now, and how it helps us in the future plan, because I don't want to keep kicking the other, I don't want to keep kicking the other projects down the road as these new ones pop up.
And maybe that would be something that in the future, as these are addressed, what part of the CIP do they land in, for that clarity and, for lack of better words, that transparency and better understanding as a board of how that piece fits the entire puzzle. Right. I see what you're saying.
Because, we've scoffed at that one going under the river by, Frosty Boy property, for a couple of years now. So what's more critical, what's more important? And again, do we push that off by 10 years by doing some other project that just pops up that makes more sense at the time?
So I think that
So
makes
can we
sense
table
to
this and
me.
then?
I think you're asking for something we don't have right now. So what I'm hearing, we have the capital improvement plan that we've requested funding for water, sewer, and street infrastructure, but you're wanting us to identify a village-wide priority of these projects.
I'm almost positive we have a plan that was created within the last 5 years that talks about the infrastructure upgrades and not only the wastewater, the water treatment plant, that sort of thing, and how we should prioritize. I just want to see how it correlates to that overall.
Because I know we have the asset management plan, and it does talk about some of the needs and projects, but it doesn't prioritize them.
I mean,
So let me look into
Okay.
that.
I mean, it's a thick white binder, and I'm almost positive within the last 5 years that we have something like that. And it's not to insult you or say that, we're not following course. I just want to stay on course and continue the plan that we have created.
So that makes sense.
Would it be possible, Danielle, to have that information for us for our next meeting at the end of July 30th?
Yeah,
Action item. Resolution authorizing the application for special license for mule tag.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the application for special license for the Yuletide event.
I'll support.
Moved and supported to approve the resolution authorizing the application for a special license for the Untitled Chapter. Can you call the roll, please?
Barb,
Yes.
Gwen? Yes. Tim,
No.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried. Action number 8, appointment administrative assistant zoning administrator full-time position.
James, do you want to recuse yourself at this point before we get going?
Do I have to leave?
Yes, you do have to leave.
Oh.
If you're recusing yourself,
I
yes.
will then. I will stay voting to recuse myself.
Thank you. James, do you want me to text you or come?
Yeah, you can text me. I'll just be out here.
Okay. Okay, I apologize. I wanted to make a note. So James has recused himself since Andrea, his spouse, did apply for this position. So just before we get into any questions that you guys have, we did receive 8 applicants for this position. We had created a interview panel that consisted of myself, Lisa, Jerry Hayes, and Jacob. Chief initially, I had reported was going to be on that, but he had training and scheduling was the challenge, so Jacob sat on that panel in his place. We interviewed the 6 candidates, and at that time, it was a split. At the end, what we found is that Jerry and Jacob had Danielle Bartonslager as their top applicant and Andrea too, and then Lisa and I had Andrea top and Danielle too. We had a lot of really good discussion about the applicants, and to be fair, we had, it was great to see the quality of applicants we received. Of the 6 interviews, I can tell you there was 4 individuals that if we hired, I would not be upset about. But anyway, we had a lot of discussion about the position and just kind of how the position was established. And one of the things that we talked about is that the role is made up of kind of almost somebody where you need 2 different personalities. You have the work with code enforcement and police department that really requires somebody to be very firm, and this is black and white, the rules, and have thicker skin, because a lot of things that they deal with on the police side or code enforcement, people are frustrated with the ordinances, or why did you do this to me and not my neighbor? And then on the flip side of that, you have the customer service and kind of the face of the office and taking the payments and working with people. So in that position, we needed somebody we felt that was versatile, that could flip between those different roles easily. And so in that conversation, Danielle, we all felt like would do really well on the police and code enforcement side. And we felt that Andrea would do really well on the flip side. So at that interview, or after the interviews, we did not come to a decision. The panel at that time kind of deferred to me and said, I don't know what we're gonna do if we take this to council. It's a split decision. So I slept on it, and the next day I talked to all of them and said I'd like to bring in the top 3. And the reason I kind of explained the 2 sides is because the top 3 were called back for a second interview because the 3rd highest applicant was a very down the middle, and I don't know if that's the best way to say it, but they were a great applicant, but they didn't have that kind of extra wow factor, if you will, that we felt Danielle and Andrea had. So anyway, we did the second interviews, which were really kind of, I'm calling them interviews, but what I did is I had the three come in and they met with myself and I took them, literally just walked them through the village office. And we talked about what the job entails, the different people that they're working with. And then they met the employees that were here. So I did, Brent and Randy were not available. But Nora was able to stop in for all three of them. Lisa and Brandon were present for all three. And then Chief was able to make two of the three, and then Laura was able to make two of the three. But my whole idea was, because we were having such a hard time, is that if I brought them in, it would hopefully give some clarity. And I would be able to see how they interacted with the other employees, if they were engaged and, if they were interested in the job, if they had questions for us or different ideas. And I will tell you that it actually, I think, made it harder because, again, we had really good applicants. So that got us to this point. I am recommending Andrea. I do want to be very clear that it is not because of her relationship with James. I am recommending Andrea because I feel that she is the best fit for the village. If Danielle were selected, there would be no hard feelings on my part. I think she would do a wonderful job as well. What kind of moved Andrea ahead for me is her relationship already with a lot of our community members. I kind of already touched on the fact that that position is the face of the office. They're really the point of contact or the first person that a lot of our citizens see. And I think that Andrea will help to enhance and bring about the friendliness and helpfulness. And again, not that Danielle won't, but, and I think her experience that she has volunteering for the village will help her in this position. And again, that is my recommendation. I will defer to the employees. If you want to ask them questions, I don't want to speak for them. I did talk to all of them following the interviews to see if they had any ideas. And I think they are all here except Nora, who her top candidate was Andrea as well. And again, she felt all three would be great. But if you have questions for me, I will try to answer them. If you have questions for the employees, I believe they too will answer.
So I just have one thing, that timeline was not totally correct. I was sat on that committee, and when I left that committee meeting that night, you said you were gonna sleep on it and let us know in the morning. Well, I heard nothing Friday, I heard nothing Saturday, nothing Sunday, and you caught me with like 10 minutes to go before the village meeting on the following Monday to tell me what you had decided to do.
And Jerry, at that point, I had not called anybody yet. So,
Okay. Because
so you can bring that up, but to be fair, you knew before I took any other action on what I was doing moving forward.
I did.
And I apologize, it wasn't the next morning, but I have had a little bit going on,
I
so.
understand, but I could have swore you said you talked to the other people the next morning.
I did not talk to anybody else until I talked to Jacob, I believe the same day. And then I didn't even tell Lisa until, I don't even know if I told her, to be fair. I don't remember, but either way, I apologize it wasn't the next morning, but you knew before I took any other action.
I did, and I guess I'm just a little, the more I think about it, I'm just a little disappointed that things didn't come back to the committee so we could talk about it.
Then you should have said something when I asked you if you were good with me moving forward with the second interviews, not now after the fact.
I said yes, I just want it stated that, and the more I thought about it, I was a little disappointed, especially when I started thinking back to some of the other employees that we've hired in the past.
Jerry, I don't quite understand. Could you clarify that for me? What is the concern?
So we had a committee set up to do the interviews. Just like when you served on the legal committee.
Right.
You served on that to bring a recommendation to council.
Right.
Correct. When I served on, when we hired a police officer, I served on that committee. The committee brought a recommendation to council,
Right.
who we thought would be the best candidate. I'm just saying this whole situation deviated from the committee, and if we were gonna have second interviews, then the committee should have been involved in that,
Should have been involved in
the second interviews.
the entire committee, meaning
Correct.
yourself as well.
Correct.
Because the other parts of the committee, meaning Danielle and Lisa and law enforcement, either chief or
Lieutenant.
Wagner, thank you, that they were involved, but you were not involved.
Correct.
I understand now. I wasn't following. Thank you for clarifying.
And I respect that position. What bothers me is that it's brought up after the fact.
Well, you caught me kind of blindside, and I didn't have a lot of time to think about that.
But you didn't say anything until the meeting tonight. That's
Fair enough.
the thing, and I agree with you, the committee should make a recommendation, but the committee was split. So I could have brought that and then left it up to council with the split decision, but my thought was that doing the second interviews and calling them back was actually doing our due diligence to make sure that we were recommending the best applicant.
Well, from what I can see, the committee's not recommended the same applicant. So we have two here. Other than the email that you sent over, what's on the agenda, that's what I had to go by until I get here. And then I have the applications. So I'm disappointed in that, because now I have to make a decision on a split second right here at this meeting.
What, I don't understand what you're saying, because regardless of us receiving the applications now, the committee did see the applications and they did determine who to interview.
Yeah, but who is the committee recommending?
The committee is split,
It's split, they're not.
which
That's
is
what I'm
what's in
saying.
the council.
I don't have clear direction from the committee. So now I have to look at these applications, and I'm looking at Danielle Bartenslager and Andrea Eisen.
I see what you're saying. I thought you were referring to all of the applications.
No.
You're talking those two.
Well, I am referring to all, but right now, I'm just gonna go with these two. So when I look at these two here, the experience that Danielle Bartenslager has would coincide right with the police department. And I might say code enforcement has experience working at the district court. So that that would be the direction that I would go. Andrea is a very nice person. She is one of the greatest here in this community. I'm just looking at experience and what we need to fulfill that part of it, the code enforcement, police department. Is Danielle Bartenslager here?
What percentage of the applicants or the person in that position as they look at the window? What percentage of the time, Danielle, do they spend with law enforcement?
The police funds this position at 11.5%. And the zoning funds this position for code enforcement at 3.8, or I'm sorry, yes, 3.8%.
So we are saying over 80% of the time, or 80% of the budget, the person working in that position is a customer relations person. And it is a person that working with customers, if you are residents / potential residents, businesses, et cetera. So they're a customer-oriented environment is what we have going on there. That's been the goal of our village offices. And anyone who's worked with Andrea with her customer relations, thank you, just said that word, thank you. Her customer relations at the post office it is just very well known that she is outstanding at the job that she does. I've had a resident personally come to me and after knowledge of the applicants, said, wow, you couldn't ask for a better person to be, have the residents of Blissfield come in and be greeted by Andrea Eitzen, because of her experience, her volunteer work. I would be hands down stating that Andrea is the person for this position, simply based, well, I should say simply based, but based on a couple of things. Number one, you are our administrator, and I take that seriously. You work with this person. Lisa, I take your vote, your thoughts respectfully. Brandon, I take your thoughts respectfully. Laura, since you're here, I'm not sure where your position was on this. Who, since you worked for all three folks, who did you have as the first person or the second person?
I had Andrea as the first person and Katie as the second.
So again, you four people are there in the office. And so if the four people that work in the office are saying that here is a person that is the, one of the best people to greet our people, our residents. I mean, that just speaks volumes to me. You're welcome.
And I would add too that I mean, I think that this person does work with the police department and we value their opinion
My
as well.
apologies, I did.
And I fully understand why Chief and Jacob, why Danielle, they feel is a better fit. And I do agree with them. If this was solely for the police department and code enforcement because of her experience. And again, Danielle is a great applicant. I do not want this conversation to deter from that. But again, looking at the whole picture, I'm recommending Andrea because of that larger portion. And that's where I'm coming from, is making what's going to be best for the village. And I think that Andrea is more than capable of learning the police side of things and being a great asset for them. But again, I respect where they're coming from and I completely see that side of it.
And I didn't mean to indicate that I didn't expect that side either. I hope that was not insinuated. I just went with the numbers as well, that 80% of the time, this is where the person would be. The other comment that I'd like to make that I think is important is, as council, we all know that this is not a position that we relish, nor is this a position that we should be put in, nor is this a position that Gwen Dusa personally wants. I don't want to hire anyone. I want our administrator to do the hiring. And this is something that we've talked about, like I said previously, with this happening. If the personnel policy comes into effect, I think we all have said this before, that we don't relish being in this position. We are not in a job for hiring/firing the people. This is going to be our administrator. And the council needs to get out of hiring and let Danielle do what she does best. And that is to run, take care of Blissfield. And I think that the final decision should be administrator based. And that's where I'm going on that position. I am done.
I just had two comments. I was wondering how long you were with the applicants for the second interview. Is that something you can share with us?
Absolutely. So I was with the other two applicants for just, I would say probably a couple minutes off, but 45 minutes. I was with Andrea for almost 2 hours.
And is that because you were asking questions or she was?
She was.
She was asking questions about how we operate.
Yes, Andrea was very, and that was another, again, reason that I felt good in making my recommendation for her. And the other applicants did ask questions, but Andrea was very engaged. She asked a lot of really good questions and not like, oh, where's the mailboxes? And it was really job-based questions. And she, sorry about the mailbox. I didn't realize till after I said. But she also had ideas. So she said, if I get this when I do code enforcement, could I do this? Have you guys tried this? And it wasn't just asking questions about the job, but bringing different ideas and concepts as well, which is in turn why that was an extended second interview, I believe.
Good. And my second thought is that when we hired Laura, DDA has always said, You just pick somebody good who can do the work. Anybody can be trained to be a DDA director. Well, anybody can be trained for this or for this. We can train Andrea for the police department. We can train Danielle for the front desk. But Andrea's already got the 80% of it. She's already trained in that area. Learning the little tasks is easy. So to me, Andrea's a no-brainer.
I would like to ask Chief his thoughts.
I'm staying out of this one. That's my thought.
Well, I disagree with Gwen. I believe the village council needs to be involved in the hiring
Then why am I here? Why am I in this position?
to help run the village on a day-to-day basis.
I can't do that when you guys are constantly micromanaging me and you're constantly split.
Right.
I feel like I'm nailing Jello to the wall here.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. And I'm gonna get emotional because I care about my job and I care about this village. You guys have got this, stop this split decision thing, and if you don't want me in this position making decisions, then my evaluation's next. So maybe that needs to be the conversation. And I'm sorry for getting emotional, but it's frustrating.
This is why she's here.
I wasn't, so just to be clear, I wasn't questioning the candidates, I was just questioning the process and why we deviated from. There's nothing against you.
Because every
It was-
situation is different. In deviating, I've not provided you guys resumes for any applicant that's been submitted since I've been here, yet I had to for this one. Because this one's different, because the paper wants to publish that she's related. And you know what, there's 2 applicants related, and I wanna go off on a tangent, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just telling you guys, I am frustrated. I literally, and it's out of my control, because only you guys can decide to get along and work through this and let me and the village employees do the job. We all want to do a good job, we all want to be here, or we wouldn't put in the time and hours that we do, and yet constantly battles.
I would say for the last 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, we've gotten along and been moving projects forward.
I think the projects are moving forward, but I think on a personal level, it's not been, no,
I
it's
think
not.
there's still an undercurrent.
There are things still
It's
being
not
said,
blatant, but there's still
etc.
undercurrent.
But that's not what this is about. The
No,
big
it's not.
picture is that we have our administrator who's working with the person in this position, as well as the other people in the office. And this has nothing to do against the police office at all. I'm going back to the 80%. The people that are gonna work with this person, and in my opinion, hopefully it is Andrea, they are saying Andrea is the best person for this candidate. Why are we not listening to our employees? That's one of the things on the evaluation that's going to be discussed, I'm sure, is the relationship with our administrator and the employees. Here she's asked them, what are your thoughts? She's involved them. Like saying no to what Lisa is saying no to what Brandon is suggesting and Laura is suggesting, when those are the people that are the bulk of the thing, that's like slapping them in the face, in my opinion.
Exactly. So let's go back to the legal counsel, when you totally voted with one citizen in the public who said he thinks you should hire local, and you didn't listen to the village administrator recommendation. You didn't listen to the village police chief's recommendation,
That's true.
and you voted on the other.
And if you really want to get on it, Mike, I didn't vote for Danielle either. I won't say that. Have I made mistakes in my votes? Absolutely. If you're talking about me, absolutely.
So it fits the narrative is what you're saying.
No, it
based
doesn't
on-
fit a
on our
narrative. It fits the.
Absolutely, it's because you didn't take into consideration what Danielle recommended for legal counsel. You didn't take into consideration, and now you automatically, magically want to listen to what our employees
No,
recommend.
stop right there.
That's absolutely
You are,
true.
see, what's happening right now is you are saying this specifically to me. And I don't know why this has to happen, but I'm gonna stop that
Because you voted,
conversation.
because you said this one gentleman here, I'm representing the constituent, and that's how I'm voting, by one recommendation, one constituent. That's exactly how
I'm
you vote.
gonna go on, and I'm gonna say this. We have other people in the office, as I've stated several times now. We have Lisa, we have Brandon, and we have Laura. Yes, as far as hiring, I do believe the village administrator is the person for the hiring. I don't want to do this anymore. I hope the personnel policy gets done, so we don't have to do this anymore. And literally, it would have been cut and dry. The administrator would have said, this is the person for the employment, and I would have agreed with that. On other things, I don't necessarily agree with her, but you will see that if you take a look at all my voting records, Mike, and you look to see if I agree with Danielle or not, I would say 80–90% of the time, I do agree with her. On certain things, I don't. I'm not gonna go through all of the litany of the yeses that I've agreed with her on. I'm not going to do that.
Well, all you're saying is you're basing your vote on what the recommendation of staff was, when you totally negated any recommendation from staff on a previous motion to hire.
I'm not having that discussion with you. We're talking about Andrea Eitzen at this time.
Nitpicking.
I guess my question would be the elephant in the room. What is your input on the relationship between Mr. Easton and Andrew potentially working with the village? I mean, I've had people reach out to me as well about that one, and as well as the large.
And what's your response, considering you're a trustee and it's your sister that was in the office?
And I knew that's
How-
what, and then I knew exactly where that was gonna come.
Well, no, that, Jerry.
Let me finish.
No,
Let me
yeah.
finish.
Wait a second.
Okay.
You're
One person
asking me
at
a
a time,
question.
go ahead.
Okay. I had nothing to do with recruiting Holly to work here.
I didn't say that
had
you
nothing
did.
to do with the hiring. I abstained when she was hired. Jim and Laura sought her out from the bank after the bank sought her out from the other bank. I had
didn't say-
nothing to do with that process.
I didn't say anything was wrong with the process. My point was this, if you would let me finish, as I have my handy dandy little list here, all right, that we've had several people that have gone ahead and have a relationship. Why? We are a small community. We are one of the biggest employees in this community between us and the school, okay? So between that, we have had several people. We have Jerry Hayes, who has a brother, Jason Hayes. Jerry has been very honest and open about that. In fact, I remember maybe one of the first times when we voted on budget, Jerry even was curious if he should have the opportunity to vote or not. He asked that question because he wasn't sure and he wanted to be transparent on it. We've also had Jane and Randy Kelly. We've also had Jim Wanacott and Laura Newman. We've also had Holly Kester and Mike Gunter. That's the point I was going to make. So as far as this being a factor for James Eitzen, a trustee, and his wife, Andrea Eitzen, working over there as a receptionist, zoning administrator, as well as police work, is irrelevant. It should not even be a factor.
I absolutely think it is. I disagree. And again, you're right, this process was flawed. It should be either boiled down to the council hires or we leave it to the administrator's hand. I totally agree with that. And that needs to work, changing the personnel policies, procedures. I get Danielle's upset, but Danielle, when you hired in here, you had every absolute opportunity to know what's in the personnel policies, procedures, and how we operate right now. You're offering changes in that to try to clean this up. But again, this is how we operate and this is how we hire people. And you knew that. Secondly, for us to only see these in front of us at 6:55 p.m. to me is unacceptable. If we're gonna hire, we should be able to see the background on this. I agree with Tim that we have nothing to go on except a recommendation, no history, no background, no employment status. We can sugarcoat it all we want and say, well, Andrea's done a great job. Every time I've walked into the post office, Andrea's done a great job. She's been pleasant. You think Danielle doesn't have to be pleasant at the court? I'm sure she does the same customer service. And it's stressful there, and she has to put on that smile on her face there. So let's not sugarcoat it. They're probably both great at what they do. But let's be fair about it across the board. Let's not sugarcoat and pick and
It was
take
fair.
bits and pieces about it.
It was
Where
fair.
we're saying
Danielle came in and she
hands
had the
down.
opportunity, let me restate, did you have the opportunity to talk with Danielle, Laura?
I did not, but I do know Danielle.
Okay. Brandon, have you had the opportunity to talk with Danielle? Lisa, did you have the opportunity to talk with Danielle? What were you on?
Was there a personal issue? Was there a personal issue? Was there a personal issue
What's
during the
personal?
interviews? Was there a personality issue? No,
What are you getting at, Mike?
that during the interviews, was there a personality conflict more of rather a preference, a personal feeling versus historical
Well, ask
versus
them.
what I'm asking them, all right.
Well,
I'm asking them.
you were shaking this way.
Lisa?
No, Andrea has volunteered for this is what I'm basing my thing on. First of all, she came in for the second interview, she asked all the questions she should ask. I've done hiring in my previous employment many, many times, I've hired many people, and that's what I base it off of. She's volunteered, she's been here for the village, I know she's a hard worker. I know she's gonna follow through with all of her work, and she asked for more tasks. She shows up here to volunteer to do stuff when she doesn't even have to, and I know that the job's gonna get done. And that's what I need for support for my job to get done, is somebody that's gonna follow through with it. And I know that she's going to. And she asks all these questions, and what more training can I do? What can I learn from? That's what I am basing it on. Do I think Daniel would probably do good? And yeah, she absolutely knows the police department stuff. No doubt in that for me at all. She absolutely knows that. But that also is a small part that I believe can easily be learned.
Vice versa.
I mean, I've been picking it up on the fly, what I have to do. So I guess I don't know.
Don't believe the motion. Motion that we can hire Andrea Eisen for our receptionist slash police department zoning administrator. Position, it's right there.
Will you add contingent on a background authorization or contingent on successfully
Contingent
passing
on
background?
passing the background, yes. Background check. I will support that.
Support the hiring of Andrea Heights into the full-time administrative assistant zoning administrator position, probationary wage of $20.70 contingent on successful background check. Any other comments or questions?
I would hope that as a council, that we can come together on this and move forward to working together on what is, I think, a good thing for our office. That's my only comment.
You can call the roll.
Jerry,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes,
Mike,
No.
Kim,
No.
Barb,
yes,
Bob,
Yes. Congratulations.
congratulations.
Are you okay with the discussion? that was held? I know.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, I want to welcome you, but I also want to know if you were,
Is there anything you might like to say
yes,
this time?
everything you like to say.
Thank you, Danielle, for the opportunity, and I hope that I can do a good job.
When do you start?
Tomorrow.
That is up for discussion.
Danielle, will you text James?
I did, yes. I can go try to track it down.
I think we can shortly.
That was out of my control, I'm sorry.
Okay, can I have a time? Next, moving on, action. All right, we're gonna move on. Action item number 9, evaluation, village administrator. Have a copy of the compiled scores and the comments. You know, had high scores, most, all the we could if you want. Organization management, the average score.
No. Daniel, where's the average for all 4 questions?
The average score is the first column and it breaks it down for each question.
Each question, okay.
And then you have the trustee scores and then the self-evaluation score, and then all of the comments are included. Based on the instructions, we follow them. So what the instructions said on the evaluation that we adopted is that each of you would evaluate me individually, which you did, and those are recorded. Average score, self-evaluation, all comments are included, and then council would talk about the goals as a whole, which I did include the goals that were included on the evaluations are included in this, so you guys can change those and work together to make sure that I have clear goals from the council as a whole, but the individual comments and scores would not change. So those were done by each.
And what happened to our, or what happens, I should say, what happened past tense to our individual scores?
So your individual sheets are destroyed after this is approved, and this document is what's placed in my personnel file, so that it shows all of my scores, all of the comments, and then again, my self-evaluation, and then the averaged scores.
I just wanted that to go on record where our.
So this document would become like if somebody wanted public record or to look at my evaluation, this is what they would receive. And again, the changes are stuff you guys would look at too, would be the goals.
So we're going organization management, the average is 4 over 4. There's 4 questions. Fiscal management, there's 8 questions. The averages are more 4. Immediate long-range planning, 4. Intergovernment relationships, 4.
It's out of the score, it's out of the score of 5, guys. So 4 out of 5.
Relationship with the public, 4. Management employee relationships, 4. Relationship with council, 4. Personal development, 4. Personal characteristics, 4.
Well, then there's your percentage score.
So total percent scores at 84%. Total average.
I have a comment, if I may, regarding the management of employees and relationships. I don't know about the rest of council, but I found that section a little challenging for myself. And I don't know if that's something that we would tweak in the future or just literally keep it where it was. I don't have the questions in front of me, but I do recall that there were many of the questions, I want to see 3, 4 of them that almost had, I felt almost needed me to go talk directly with the employees. And I wasn't sure if that's permissible or not to do that. So I did that. I mean, I don't know how you guys felt about any of those questions or perhaps about that section. Maybe it was just a section that I kind of honed in on, like, well, I think that Danielle would do this with the employees. I would think that she would do this, but
Well, I would strongly encourage you to get out and speak with employees. I try to when I run into them. I try to make a point to when I have meetings. And just ask them for their input so that you can be a liaison between them and Danielle if need be. And if not, just encourage them to be open or her to be open with them.
okay.
Yeah, I would say feel free.
I based my comments and my numbers on talking to the employees previously.
Right,
Different, like James said, different times I ran into them.
but I thought, I almost thought I had to ask specifically about some of these questions I wasn't able to answer. Okay, answer that question, thank you. Daniel, what do you feel about this, your goals that are, we're looking at for the future, as you looked at those?
Sorry, I'm just rereading them again. I think most of them are pretty similar. I think that it sounds like you guys, your main goals are strengthening relationships with, I'm gonna say all staff, not just department heads. Personnel policy, budget. I mean, it talks about chain of command, but I think that's gonna be within the policy. And public perception. I'm good with any of these, or all of them, I should say. And I think you guys were all fairly in line with each other there.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to do an evaluation, and an evaluation that the whole group agreed upon. So the committee that worked on that, thanks for doing that, John. You thanked you earlier, but now we got a chance to apply and be a part of that thought and that input. And overall now, Danielle, that we've gone through the experience, do you feel that this was, I'm assuming you feel it's a valuable tool, but do you feel that all of the parts that you want looked at as an administrator are being addressed with this evaluation?
Yeah, I do, I guess, want to thank those that provided comments. I know some of them didn't have them. That's where I find the most value, more than the scoring and this is probably just me personally. But I think that those comments provide me a good idea of kind of what you're seeing and feeling, and that shows me where I need to maybe improve the most or spend the most time kind of working on and developing that. And I appreciate the that you guys all felt like you could be honest in my evaluation, because I'm not perfect, and I think all of us have room to improve, and I don't know, and I can't do that if you don't tell me. So that, again, those comments really helped me to understand where the scores came from. And you know, just the scoring itself, it's fine, it's helpful, but it doesn't always give me clear direction with the scores, because what I think you know, if I was scored low, what I think the reason could be very different than the reason you actually did.
And your next evaluation will be a year from now, is that how this works?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. It should, based on the policy, the personnel policy now and the evaluation we adopted, we said that it would be done the month of my anniversary, and my anniversary is July 12th. So we would do it in the month of July. And I would probably next year do the same thing that I did this year, where I give it to you guys ahead of time, my self-evaluation, so that you have some time to digest, and if you, I don't know, if you make notes or things like that, that you look back on to do the evaluation, or if you need to pull this one, you have time to do so.
And thank you for being in front of everybody, because we could have certainly gone into closed sessions. But you chose to obviously stay into open sessions.
I did, yes.
I just want to say that I think Danielle scored herself hard. I think she's very hard on herself. She's done a wonderful job. She has taken us so far in the year she's been here. I mean, to me, we had progressed 5 years into the future. We had no policies, we had no procedures before. It was just each time we did something, it was different. And Danielle has policies and procedures on file. And I love that. Thank you.
Do we have to make a motion or something on this?
Yes, you would approve it, or if you have changes that need to be made before it gets placed into my personal file.
I make a motion that we accept the Danielle's evaluation.
I support that. Moved and supported to accept Danielle's evaluation. Any other comments? If you can call the roll, Lisa.
Barb,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried. You put it in your personnel file.
Yes, Lisa will make sure.
All right, going on to the reports, administrative report. Any questions for Danielle? Police department.
Chief, under a school property check, if you find something, where do you record that on the? Find something out of place at the school?
We meet out of place, like an open door.
Yeah.
Generally just a dispatch note, that is pretty common out there. I don't want to too much, but it's not an uncommon occurrence. We do document it in our CAD notes. When we start seeing a pattern, I let the superintendent know. A lot of times we're getting out there, a lot of false alarms that has dropped off this year, but for quite a few years, it's no problem.
So that includes checking all the doors at all 3 schools?
Yeah, if they do a property check, they're doing a program check of all the doors. Because it's not uncommon to find a door that's left open by one of the sports teams or something like that. So they'll do, if they can secure it, they secure it. Make a note of it on the CAD marks, it's a.
Have you had the opportunity to meet with the school, you and the team, regarding the officer building?
Danielle and I met with them, and Mike and Tim, we met with them today.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was good timing.
It was a good discussion. Some good foundation was laid, you know, we're obviously still a long way from.
We all have homework, and we're
We all have
we're meeting next Tuesday, the 19th, to try to keep some momentum going and keep all of us doing our homework too, so.
It's just a minor issue of money.
Just that, yeah. I know. Well, hopefully, maybe as you guys progress through, maybe with the state, with the monies coming in then, or the federal, the feds coming in with their monies. You know.
There was discussion about that too.
Yeah, good.
Move on to treasurer report. Anything for the treasurer? All right. Moving on to council discussion.
One thing I'd like to say, I don't appreciate comments being made toward the Blissfield Advance. I think they're cheap shots. Just wanted to express that. Reporter's just doing the job and does it thoroughly. So thank you, Melissa.
Is David still on Zoom? Lisa, did we have Mr. Lucas? He said he was.
Yeah, yes, I'm on.
Great, okay. I was hoping that you were gonna be here, that was my understanding. Since you're on Zoom, David, I don't know where to look, so I'm just gonna look around, I guess. I'm just kind of wondering if you could go ahead and share what you may know, may not know, to clarify to council and our residents the status of the case.
Well, the case that you're referring to is in regards to the embezzlement case. As you all know, council approved a full forensic audit last year, which was completed. That was provided directly to the Michigan State Police. The Michigan State Police did their investigation, interviewed various witnesses, and reviewed that evidence, and then felt that there was enough to submit it to the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office for authorization of charges. The Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office did authorize a charge, which means typically that means that they believed that there was enough evidence presented to them that it was there was probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed and that the person charged had committed it. So they authorized the charges. Currently, the case is is still in the district court, and there is a preliminary examination that is scheduled on September 28th at 1 p.m. So that's as much as I know as far as the status of that particular matter.
Okay, I have a couple other questions for you while you're here. Is there anything you can say as whether there are other theories about what happened or didn't happen regarding this case? How it began and how it occurred?
Well, all I can say is as I stated before, is that the Michigan State Police did their investigation, and the investigator was satisfied that there was enough evidence of a crime that he felt that he was able to submit that to the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office. Now, the fact that the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office authorized the charge tells me is that they felt that the evidence itself is enough to say that there was a crime committed and the person who was charged committed the crime. So as far as other theories go, the investigator investigated and made their decision. The Lenawee County Prosecutor then reviewed that evidence, and they made their decision to issue the charge. So that should say, as far as any other theories, that's where at least the Michigan State Police and the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office obviously felt where the evidence led them.
Can you clarify regarding the $20,000, the minimum of $20,000? Can you clarify that for us?
When you're talking about embezzlement charges, there are different levels, and that is based on the amount that's alleged to have been embezzled. In this particular case, the charge is for any amount greater than $20,000. So at least according to what the investigation, apparently, at least the Michigan State Police and the in the prosecutor's office believe, is that the amount is above the 20,000, but there's nothing magical about the 20,000. It's just the level for that particular charge.
There are different levels for that?
Yes, there's embezzlement of under 1,000, 1,000 to 2,000. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but there's a number of different levels. Some of them are misdemeanors, some of them are felonies.
Could you clarify for some of the residents that believe that council / Danielle, that we have some magical knowledge and we have all this knowledge that we can't share with people? Could you address that, please, and put that on record?
Well, what I can say is the information, the detailed information as it relates to this case is with the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office. Council, nobody on the council and nobody in the administration has seen the forensic report. Nobody on the council or in the administration has read the forensic report. That report was turned directly over to the Michigan State Police. And so therefore it was part of the criminal investigation. So it was not disclosed. And now it is in the possession of the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office. And so it is now their property to use in this case. So any disclosure at this point would have to be at the discretion of the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office. But nobody on the council or in the administration has seen that report.
And we won't be seeing it, obviously.
Well, at least during the pendency of the case. I mean, obviously, if the case were to go to some sort of a trial, I would presume that, as is typical in a lot of these kinds of cases, I mean, I'm not going to speak for the Lenawee County Prosecutor's Office, but what is typical in these kinds of cases is that the forensic report will be disclosed in court, and most likely the forensic auditors and forensic accountants who perform the audit, I would presume, will be testifying as to their findings. So at some point, if the case were to go to trial, the contents of it will certainly come out. But as of right now, it's not. It's not public.
Okay, all right. Those are the questions that I had. Thank you very much for answering them. I don't know if anybody else on council has any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have just one question for discussion maybe. River Racing Festival, I know we voted that we would allow the beer tent, but it didn't happen. Does anybody know the reason? Not that it matters, I guess, I just wonder.
I don't wanna, I will say what I heard, but I wanna be very clear that I heard this through the grapevine. I have not confirmed it. I'm a little hesitant to even say. Maybe you shouldn't say that, maybe not. Yeah, I've not heard anything official.
Stop there, stop.
Never mind my question.
All right,
Thank you for that.
move on to public comment, items not on the agenda. Name and address, please.
Emily Mullins, 401 Giles Avenue. I have a two-part question. Obviously, the YouTube, the Zoom access is important, and we've been able to utilize that technology to bring in the attorney tonight. Is Zoom, broadcasting the meeting on Zoom, is that village policy, or we just do it?
It is not written in a policy. When all of this stuff with COVID was going on, and it was pre my time, but I know that they had stopped doing the meetings, so Zoom was a huge tool at that point. So we did, the village at that time implemented it for their meetings, and then we've continued because we've had a lot of citizens that shared that they find it helpful to be able to watch the meetings on Zoom when they can't always be here. We did adopt a policy for public comment, and we don't allow it via Zoom because it is really complicated to track everything and to make sure that we are getting all of them relayed to council. So for public comment, you would have to either be in person or submit it in writing to myself or Lisa by noon the day of the meeting, and then we would read the public comment word for word or verbatim. So that, and I know I'm kind of telling you more than initially, but again, we continue Zoom just for the benefit of the citizens that can't be here.
Okay. And same question about having the recording available on YouTube. That's just something that happens because the employees choose to make it available.
Correct. So under state law, we are required, if we record the meeting, we're required to keep that recording until the minutes are done or approved by council. We do just keep it on, we don't go in and remove it from YouTube so that people can go back and rewatch those if they so choose.
I think those are two very useful tools, and as a citizen, I appreciated both of those opportunities. But I just wondered that then we could have, say, a village administrator or a clerk that chooses not to publish, not to broadcast on Zoom, or not to make or to take down the recording after the minutes have been approved. So I just wonder if that might be something that the council would consider adopting as an actual policy. Because obviously we have people on Zoom right now, and you have views on your video, so obviously people are accessing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Laura Nichols, 206 Franklin Street. I am the current DDA Main Street manager for the Village of Blissfield. Danielle is not technically my boss. I have a board that I report to. So I did want to take this opportunity to, in light of the conversation tonight, I have never seen, getting emotional too, such a dedicated employee. You guys have no idea. And she's not my boss, so I don't get any kudos for this. She works her butt off. She's here until midnight. She is fair. I don't always agree with what she says. I mean, I think we all in this room have that in common. She's tough. She's kind. I honestly, you guys have a unicorn in this woman. She knows her stuff. I see her interact with people that would just blow you away. I hope that you as a council know what you have.
Sorry, I'm like Mullins. I forgot the second half of my comment.
I know your address by now.
On behalf of Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, we wanted to thank the people who participated in our dump tank fundraiser this past Saturday. That includes President Valdez, Treasurer Hudson, Trustee Gwen Busa, and Danielle, Village Administrator. So thank you guys for participating.
Bob got bruises. Bob has bruises. He'll never say that.
Me too, Bob.
Great. Going on to Committee of the Whole, which is next Monday night. Village Library Training, Roles and Responsibilities. Is the library going to be attending?
I have invited them. I sent an email out to them. I'm not sure. I want to say a couple weeks ago, but I don't remember the date, but I'm not heard back from anybody. I did prepare a PowerPoint presentation for the meeting, and Claire, I'm gonna say it wrong, Membella, with the State of Michigan Library has been incredibly helpful. So I've asked her to look that presentation over to make sure that I've not heard her wrong or put something in that incorrectly. Once I have that done, I was planning on sending it to council and the library board ahead of time to hopefully give you guys some time to look over it. And then at the meeting itself, we'll obviously be going into a lot more detail. So hopefully as soon as I get that back from her, I'll get that to you guys and just confirm with them that it is scheduled for Monday.
We'll take a motion to adjourn then.
Need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Support to adjourn. Call the roll, Lisa.
Glenn,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.